This week's episode of the Rural Woman Podcast is brought to you by the patrons of the Rural Woman Podcast. This amazing group of individuals contribute financially to the Rural Woman Podcast to ensure the stories of women in agriculture hit your earbuds each and every week. Want to join them in supporting the stories of women in agriculture while getting access to extended episodes, patron-only episodes, and other great perks? Head on over to wildrosefarmer.com to learn more about how you can become a patron through Patreon. Hi, I'm Caitlin Dubin, and this is the Rural Woman Podcast. I'm a first-generation farmer who married into agriculture. Born and raised in a city, I was so unfamiliar with where my food came from, but I was determined to figure it out. Through my journey into agriculture, I saw women who were strong but humble, often taking a back seat. To me, these women were leaders who deserved a seat at the table. I created the Rural Woman Podcast to share the voices of women in an industry whose stories often went untold. The rural entrepreneurs who live and breathe their work, full of grit and pride. We come here to share our stories, to be in community with each other, to be challenged and inspired, but most importantly, to be celebrated and to be heard. We may not all live, farm, ranch, or homestead the same, but we are all connected. We are rural women, and our stories are worthy of being told. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Rural Woman Podcast. Today you'll meet Victoria Robinson. Victoria is a first-generation farmer from Maryland who has built something truly special with her small herd of Highland cattle. What started as a love for animals, the land, and a desire to create her own business turned into an unexpected dream job after a major life change. Victoria knows firsthand the challenges of starting from scratch in agriculture, and that's why she's truly passionate about giving her community access to the farm through unique on-farm events and experiences. In our conversation today, she shares how she navigated divorce and career uncertainty, what it takes to grow an agritourism business, and the importance of setting boundaries while letting people connect with agriculture in a meaningful way. From marketing strategies that work to lessons that she's learned along the way, Victoria's story is one of resilience, reinvention, and the power of following what you love, even when the path isn't clear. Without further ado, my friends, let's get to this week's episode with Victoria. Victoria, welcome to the Rural Woman Podcast. How are you today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to get to dive into all things Victoria. Like I mentioned to you before we hit record, I always like to think that I have the best job in agriculture, but I think you perhaps might have the best job in agriculture.
Yeah, very unique, very fun. I'm excited to share more about what that looks like behind the scenes.
Absolutely. So tell us who you are, where you're from, and how you originally got your start in agriculture.
Absolutely. So my name is Victoria. I'm based in Maryland. We'll throw it back to middle school. I picked up riding horses as a hobby. I did not grow up on a farm, first generation farmer. So my childhood was riding scooters and jumping on the trampoline. It had nothing to do with farming or agriculture. We took summer vacations, all the traditional, or what I thought then was traditional family life. So horseback riding was something that I just did as a hobby and then got the bug for it and it stuck. That eventually led me into 4-H and FFA, and that led me into the professional career side of the ag industry. So through that season of life, I ended up meeting and marrying a farmer. And we built an on-farm market and a full kind of agritourism operation. So really the focus was our grocery store on the farm. We raised meats to supply that store, that type of thing. So that was really something I jumped into without a whole lot of experience. I didn't, like I said, grow up on a farm. It was just kind of like that trial by fire of growing that business and doing that thing. But that's really where I kind of found my passion for running a business and leading a team and the ag tourism, ag business side of things in a way. So then, huge life change, decided to get divorced in early 22, and that put my life track in a complete 180, flipped everything upside down. I was super confident in my decision to get divorced and make that relational change. But at that time, I had no idea how much of an impact that life without the farm and life without agriculture, what that was going to look like. And so I spent the next 3 or so years trying to figure that out. And that looked like sharing on social media and, kind of reaching out or giving the opportunity to kind of coach farmers because I didn't have a farm to go home to at that point. So started kind of with that. And then, of course, you have to pay your bills in that season as well. So I think over the course of those 3 years, I held 6 or 7 different jobs, and it just wasn't, nothing stuck. Nothing was it. It wasn't the answer. And it was such a hard season. And there's a lot to that. But pretty much what that taught me is that I knew my biggest passion was in ag business and working for myself and involving the farm and agriculture, but I had no idea how to get back to that. Being what at that time I was 27, thought I had family life figured out, thought I had business figured out, thought I had a solid career path. And then 180, you have all that change. So it was kind of like I was restarting at what I thought was this late age. So nonetheless, fast forward through all of that. There's so much more to it, but fast forward through all of that. Today, I am back into farming and I'm so excited. And I have launched a brand new business that is agritourism with my Scottish Highland cattle. So that includes on-farm events and private experiences, all really on a small scale. We're not talking a big, huge operation like pumpkin patches or things like that. This is private experiences, kind of one-on-one events, things like that. So it's a really unique avenue, but it has given me the opportunity to get back to full-time farming, and it's something that I will never take for granted.
Victoria, I have so many questions. All of the questions that I had written down out the window now.
Yeah.
I want to dive into, thank you for sharing that. And something, again, that we chatted about before we hit record, there's the song, the Big D, and we don't mean Dallas. It is something, divorce happens. It's 2025. We live in a world where divorce happens. But I feel like in agriculture, it is very taboo to talk about it. Being that, we have these, quote, family businesses that are large, right? When there is a divorce or a partnership separation, how does that all work? It's messy. And it really can really hurt. I've said this myself before as a fellow city kid. I didn't even ride a horse. I was lucky to pet a horse. But looking at my life now and how I've adapted and changed to a life in agriculture, I can't imagine not having it in some capacity.
Absolutely. I feel like once you're in the industry and you get that bug and you know it and you love it, to go back to not having it, it's what do you do? Where do you even start? So yeah, I totally understand.
Right. I'm curious about your former farm. You had built up this market on the farm. What was the farm doing before this business?
Yeah, so former business, the farm was a multi-generational family farm. So traditionally, it was just a beef cattle operation. So then my ex-husband started the store on the farm. There was a generation gap. So his parents didn't farm, but his grandfather did. And his grandfather passed pretty early on. So the farm was in limbo for a little bit. It was operational. We rented out the fields for crops, things like that. But it really didn't take life until he started that on-farm market, is kind of what we coined it. And it started out as okay, we had cows and we had meat to sell. that was great. And then it just kind of expanded into, well, can we raise pigs? Can we raise chickens? Can we bring in products from other local growers? And it just scaled kind of naturally, like it wasn't super forced. And of course, anytime you're starting a small business, it takes time. It takes getting the word out there. It takes marketing, and just building up that customer base takes years. So just as it progressed with kind of the demand and the customers we were meeting, it led into people wanting to know more about the farm and experience tours and being able to spend more time on the farm. And for us, that looked like pick your own and an on-farm playground and all of that stuff. So it was really a business based around community, but really about getting people to the farm was its biggest pull.
Absolutely. So you had mentioned, kind of your toe into agriculture was through horses, but where was this love of entrepreneurship? Where did that come from?
Totally by accident. I had no plans of ever, never even thought that I would be in a position to own my own business or create something, things like that. So it was definitely through kind of that first business avenue, meeting and marrying the farmer and running that business. It's just something I kind of accidentally fell into. So my ex-husband is the one who started it. So kind of running that alongside with him just showed me okay, you're capable of this. You can do this. You can figure it out, but never I don't have a degree in it. I didn't go to college for it. I have an AA in graphic design that's ancient now. So it was definitely just a being willing to jump in head first and kind of falling into this path. So yeah, I do 100% give so much credit to that season of my life for discovering that passion for agriculture and that experience. And even though my life looks totally different now, looking back, it was still a positive impact, 100%. So definitely where kind of the business love came from.
Well, and I just think and I'm biased, obviously, because I'm a city person in agriculture, but I think people who didn't grow up in the industry bring something to it, right? We know what the general public doesn't know about agriculture. Yeah. So we're curious just right alongside them. Mm-hmm. And I think when you have that curiosity, bringing it to a multi-generational farm, you can hopefully influence to make the multi-generations think differently, right? Because they think, well, why wouldn't anybody know this? Mm-hmm. Well, why would we know this, right? We go to the grocery store to get our food. We go to the farmer's market on Saturday and there's produce there. We don't know how it got there. We're happy it's there. And when it was taken away, I think that natural curiosity came out in tenfold.
Yes, for sure. 100%.
So let's talk about getting into your new project. So you were out of the egg industry, walking away from that business. I just want to take a moment because I can only imagine how heartbreaking that in itself was.
Yeah, honestly, 100%. And it's something that has taken me a long time to even talk about, all the credit to being in therapy and processing and all of that stuff. But it's not the whole process, and especially first, let's touch on the fact of leaving this business. It was so customer facing and so public and so community supported that people were not only just shopping for our products, but they were shopping to support us. So when you are such a big piece of that, and if you are in a small town community, you will know that the drama that can come with that can be very vicious. Everyone has an opinion and everyone wants the inside scoop. So initially stepping out for this business, we wanted things to transition pretty smoothly. The process and the way that things ended was pretty healthy. As far as I took a couple months to train pretty much people to replace me and made sure that I wasn't just stepping out and leaving them to sink ship. So that's really important as well, to know that even through the emotion, it's not I was on a mission to have the business fail or anything like that. So that transition in itself the business, the community life, all of that in one shot is a whole process. And remind me, what was the second part of the question? I kind of got off track.
I don't think I had a second part. I just really wanted to take a moment to, like, I guess for me, it would be almost kind of like a mourning or grieving of losing something so big. Not to mention a marriage. Okay, we have the relational, emotional part of that.
Right.
But for me, and I think of myself and my business that I've grown, if I had to give that to somebody or walk away from that due to circumstances that, don't really even relate to this, like I'm getting misty thinking about it, Victoria. Like it's so hard. So I want to commend you for doing that, and yay therapy, because, being able to separate business from emotion, very hard to do. Very hard to do. And I think it's something that agriculture struggles with. I myself struggle with. Like, it's just business. It's just numbers on a page. But boy, does it hurt my feelings.
Yeah, 100%. And that was the grief that, like, I wasn't expecting. Like, I knew there was going to be heartbreak with the relationship and things like that. But the grief that came from stepping away from the farm was way worse. And it was one of those things, like, making that decision, I was prepared in a way for what to expect, like, of course, the divorce process, but was very unprepared as far as what leaving the farm would mean and what going out and getting a normal 9-to-5 job would mean. And, like, I knew these things in my brain. Like, I knew, like, okay, this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3. But the grief and the emotion that came with that, super difficult.
Right. And I think that is so important to say. And if anybody gets anything from this episode, we all love Highland cows. We all think, all of this is fun and great, but, like, we have to take the time to separate and to grieve. And I think we are so bad with that because we just persevere and we just push through. And it's like, that's going to come back and bite you in the ass one day if you don't take the time now. So you can help support the stories of women in agriculture to be shared through the Rural Woman podcast on Patreon. What is Patreon? It's a membership-based platform that helps fund and support creators like me to create and produce content like this that you all love. New to the Rural Woman podcast Patreon is ad-free listening and patron-only bonus content and exclusive episodes. Learn more and join the patron gang today at patreon.com/The Rural Woman Podcast. Let's move on to happier things and Highland cows, because, like I said, you might have the best job in agriculture. So where did the idea of agritourism and Highland cows come in?
Yeah, creating this brand new business kind of all happened by accident. So for me, getting back into agriculture simply started with, like, putting down roots again and landing in an area. And I was getting involved with a couple of, like, ag business groups and just things in my local community. So that was kind of step 1 of figuring out, like, where do I belong again? How do I fit into this? And what can I pull off? Because for me, not having a farm to go home to and being single and an individual, the overwhelming pressure of, like, startup costs and initial, like, land prices and all of that stuff was so intimidating that, like, I didn't think it was going to be possible to even financially afford to get back into agriculture, let alone, like, just even where to start with all of that. So very fortunate through those couple community groups and just putting down roots and kind of having the self-awareness of that was my goal, what's next, that type of thing. I also ended up meeting someone new, and I'm now farming alongside of my boyfriend, which this is another long process. We kind of farmed together for a year or two, or I'd help out here, there, also had my off-farm job, but was very, like, resistant to kind of go all in. And I think part of that is the fear of the past repeating itself of like, I already farmed with someone else's family and it got, great experiences, but also came with a lot of hurt and pain as well. So really just kind of lightly helped out on the farm as I was still processing all of my stuff. And then last November, 2024, I ended up losing my job. And it was just this huge wake-up call and realization to me of, you're not even on the right track. Like, you're not doing what you want to do. And I finally decided to go all in with the farm and built my own stream of the business. So that's where kind of the Highland Agritourism came from. And of course, in that process, I guess how I got started with Highlands, my boyfriend had Angus cattle, just a small herd selling meat direct to consumer. So I convinced him to let me get 2 Highlands, literally just for fun, no other purpose. I was like, they're cute. Just let me have 2. You can use all the rest of the space. Like, it'll be great. So it started with 2, and now we have transitioned the whole herd over to Highlands. So it's snowballed. We really just do breeding stock. And then pretty much all through 2024, as we kind of shared the Highlands on social media. We got so many messages of people wanting to come to the farm and visit. And I resisted it for so long because just the infrastructure and the liability and the time, like opening to the public also comes with a whole other slew of things that normal farmers don't navigate. So I resisted it for a while because I was like, I know what it takes. I know the time. I know the extra just level of welcoming people to your farm. So finally, once I lost my job in November, I didn't want to go back to searching for another job because clearly after years of doing that on repeat, it was not working and not sticking. So we finally built a booking calendar and opened up for reservations, and we've been fully booked. We're fully booked now through April. So a very fast influx of interest and visitors. And yeah, it's been a wild couple of months in the best way.
That is so good. And I always think to myself too, like, if I had to go get a quote real job again, I don't think anybody would hire me. I don't think I'd be very good at it. You have to like wear real pants when you go to workplaces, those kinds of things. So finding something to make your own and to make it into a business, welcome to what we're currently doing right now, because this wasn't supposed to be what it is either. So I think I'm trying to remember a time where I didn't see the Highland cow picture from IKEA in my head. Like, I feel like the success of Highland cattle as a breed is due to the IKEA photo that everyone can think of when they think of this. What was it for you? Obviously, they were kind of cute, but in the back of your mind, when you're thinking, like, I want these cows, was it like maybe subconsciously, like, this is going to turn into my life and my business?
Honestly, when I got my first 2, there has always been like some novelty and hype around them. And the original appeal was definitely just the unique factor. When I first got them, I was like, we'll just breed them, have the calves, sell the calves, be done. Never did I ever think that it would turn into a whole business around Highlands from getting those 2. It was simply like, purchasing my first 2 cows was my first like real step back into agriculture after getting divorced. So really it was for my heart more than anything. And then just navigating kind of, sharing them on social media and just the influx of people and inquiring. Then of course the business side of my brain was like, okay, this could be a thing. Like, if we have some systems and some structure to it, like, I think it could work. So navigating it and building this business, I think always in the back of my mind, I didn't want to create something like the previous business I had where it was set hours and you were stuck behind a register and we had this big, huge team. And I want something that is way more manageable, way more low key, that can pay my bills and let me have as much time on the farm as possible. And doing that and letting the public experience what I love as well is just a win-win. And it's kind of accidentally created itself into what it is today. And I think if I forced it or tried to do what I'm doing from the start, it would have ended up completely different.
I would be remiss not for you to talk about your cows specifically. So I'm assuming they have names. So what was the name of the first two that you got?
The first two that I got, their names were Ella and Bella. They were a cow-calf pair, both of breeding age. And there's different like registries for the Highlands. So American Highland Cattle Association is like your top tier registry. Very similar to other cattle registries. You have all the lineage, things like that. And then second tier registration is Heartland Highland Cattle Association. This is a way to register your cows if they don't have papers, because there's a very big part of the Highland industry that I don't want to call it a pet part of the industry, but there's this novelty around having a house cow and a mini cow. And it doesn't split the industry in half, but it's very different in the Highland world than it would be in like Hereford, Angus, that type of thing. So with the Highland industry, you do get a lot of unregistered cattle and a lot of just information or lack of information with breeding stock. So of course, price point was a big point starting out. So my first two were unregistered. And then as I've gotten deeper into the industry, we really want to make sure that we're on track with breed standards and lineage. So we're working towards transitioning to a full registered herd as well.
So what is something unique about the breed that you don't think enough people know about?
I think the biggest thing, like unique to Highlands, is just their adaptability. They are so hardy through the winter. And from my experience, they've been great moms. And then, of course, they're a meat breed as well. So just the way that they can maintain themselves and not struggle through harsh winters, things like that, like they are so hardy, I guess is the best way to put it. Yeah. So I think that's probably their biggest thing.
Yeah. It's hard to not just think of them as like Muppet pets that are running through a field, though. They are so cute and so hairy. Has there been any roadblocks or challenges in your breeding program or expanding your herd?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for us, or for me as a first generation farmer and my boyfriend now that I've lumped him into all of this, is the sheer cost of them. You know, cattle prices are high right now anyway, but I feel like the Highlands are just a little bit more expensive because they have this novelty and demand behind them. So getting started is hard, especially like we meet a lot of other farmers who are like, I just want one, I just want two. So there's a lot of like educating that comes with kind of us sharing online and having Highlands and especially opening to the public. But figuring out how to start out and how to afford it and then throw in feed costs and infrastructure and all the things. So that initial investment is a little scary. And I hear that from a lot of other growers as well, or farmers, I should say. But yeah, and then of course, like I said, it's a very interesting industry. You have your people that want to race for meat and keep it to traditional breed standards. And then you have your, we'll say more hobby farm, which, you know, we're in support of both sides. There's just two totally different ways of raising them and doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about social media. Obviously, Highland cattle are probably some of the cutest cows that you can make Instagram famous. So people started reaching out to you wanting to come see these cows. And were they people that you knew, or was it complete strangers on the internet that saw that you had these? How did it start?
To start it out, what really started it all is we also grow pumpkins. So we're heading into our third season. And of course, naturally, when you have something to sell, you share it on social media. So then once pumpkin season was over, we just started sharing about the cows and the farm in general. So the messages that we were getting started with kind of like our local community wanting to come by and check them out. And I resisted it for so long, at least like a year and a half, just because at that time, like we both worked off the farm. We had other, we were trying to farm as well. Like, hey, pumpkins, all the things. It's not like we just had the free time and we're hanging out at the barn. So to facilitate people coming to the farm, I was like, let's just not. So eventually, once we got enough messages and once it kind of like the seed was planted, so it was in my brain. I was like, you know what? Maybe we should try it. So we started by hosting Christmas mini photo sessions. And we had a great photographer that we partnered with. She had cow experience. And I was like, here's what I'm thinking. Do you think there's interest? And she's like, absolutely. Let's put it out there. Let's try it. So we set up our little backdrop and we ended up booking out so fast. And then there was this whole wait list. And then people were like, what else? When can we see them? What's next? So it turned into this whole thing accidentally. And then when I was ready to finally go all in on the farm is when I was like, all right, we can have different offers, open up a calendar, do X, Y, and Z with it.
Very cool. So it started with Christmas photos. Tell us about the other offerings that you currently have on the farm.
So pretty much we do private reservations, which I call my Highland Hangouts. This is for groups of 1 to 6 people, 45-minute time slot, and pretty much they get to come into our barn. We have 4 to 5 different cows haltered and tied. Liability risk-wise, I will not let people just loose in the field with the Highlands. Horns being one of the most obvious things, cows in general, just big animals. So we find it best for us that if people are going to be hands-on and brushing, haltered and tied, so they get to brush, take whatever pictures they want. I set out a little bowl of hay. They can feed them hay, which people love. And then we also feed them fig Newtons as like a special treat. So yeah, it's super cute watching people kind of experience them and all of that good stuff.
That's amazing. I think we should try and get you sponsorship from Fig Newton and they can be like the poster cows for Fig Newtons.
Yeah, they're obsessed.
So good. How have you found the response from your community? Obviously, when you had the smaller offerings, it was booked up, but once you've expanded this calendar, is it still as popular as it was?
Yeah, absolutely. It has been booking up way more than I ever expected. So best problem to have. Pretty much we offer 3 sessions on Saturdays and Sundays because the cows, of course, can only people for so long naturally. So we do 3 sessions on the weekends, and that's pretty much fully booked within 48 hours of us opening up our calendar, which is crazy to me. So then we started opening slots during the week just to have something else to offer. And that will slowly fill up. That's nothing as intense naturally, of course, as people are working and doing different things. So we'll see where weekday bookings go. But as of right now, booking during the week or weekend is super intense. Like you have to be on it when we open the booking calendar. So there's definitely the demand and the interest. A big part of that is our demographic. We are about, I'd say, a little over an hour from DC and Northern Virginia. That just has some bigger cities, bigger volumes of people that are way disconnected from agriculture. So yeah, we're very lucky as far as location, but all of it comes back to social media as far as like how the word is getting out there.
What have been some of your biggest lessons learned in hosting public on your farm?
Yes, you cannot prepare enough and you cannot say your boundaries and your rules enough. So as we have opened to the public, being very clear as far as like location, the time frame that they're allowed to be at the farm, that they have to wear closed-toed shoes, that if you come to the farm and it's 30 degrees outside, it's also going to be 30 degrees in the barn. So spelling out every little detail to make sure your customer has a good experience is probably the best thing that I can tell you. And that can be in the details on your website, in your confirmation email, reminder emails, all the things. Like if you think you need to tell someone that it's going to be cold outside and they need to wear a winter jacket, you need to tell them like 3 times. So yeah, and it's those little things, the little details that, we forget. We know if we're going outside and we're going to the barn, we need closed-toed shoes and a jacket. But when people are coming from the city, from their heated apartment to their heated car, and now they're stuck outside for 45 minutes, they're cold. So it's been an interesting experience, but being prepared and lots of communication and reminders is probably the biggest thing to do if you're kind of opening your farm in this way.
Yeah, absolutely. I even think of myself as like a host or MC for events. The amount of people who ask me where the bathroom is after I just told them where the bathroom is, like,
yes.
And I'm just as guilty, right? Like we skim, we see these things, but what has been the biggest, I guess, success in marketing what you're offering? And this could be for your former farm or for this farm as well. Sometimes it can feel like we're screaming into a void and we don't know where the people are. And then other times it works like gangbusters. So what's worked for you?
Yeah, honestly, I give so much credit to social media, both in my former business and presently. I guess former business wise, we had a lot of success with like live videos. And then of course, outside, like I feel like consistent posting, that's very basic. So more on a deeper level, we would do live videos once a week as like a market tour, just to show you what you could buy for the weekend and what was on sale, any new items, blah, blah, blah. That really helped people kind of prepare before they came to shop. And that was really born through COVID, because at that point during that season, we had to limit our store to 10 people shopping at one time because it was so small. So turning to social media and doing those live videos let people know, like, okay, I need X, Y, and Z. And they didn't spend as much time browsing, but instead they were prepared and spent more time just shopping and moving on. So the turnover was really helpful with that. And then presently, of course, between now and then is a couple years, so social media changes, but of course, it's still a great way to reach people. So what I found really leaning into Reels currently, video content is still what reaches what I'll say like the masses. We've never really gone viral. So, and we're a small account. Like I think our Instagram is just a little over 3,000. That's nothing crazy, right? But to be fully booked with having that, what I'll say, small amount of numbers on social media is huge. So leaning into Reels and really making sure that like you're showing up and you're not ghosting people for a couple weeks and then just popping back up and being like, and by the way, we're still here. So that's been huge. And then we've also played around a little bit with different collaborations as far as like working with an influencer or just other business to business collaboration to get in front of other audiences in our area has been super helpful as well.
I like what you said about we haven't gone viral. Right. And I think to myself, do you need to?
No.
Right? You're not looking for people to, I guess, travel across the country or the world to come to your farm. It'd be very flattering if they did. However, to get to those pockets of people in your local-ish area, I think is more important than having a reel have 1 million people see it.
Agreed, 100%. And I think just naturally as humans, we get so sucked into the views and the followers and the numbers. But really what matters is, are you converting? Like, are you getting those people to check out with you, to show up at your farm, whatever the end goal for your farm is that happening? Or are you so worried about getting 10,000 views on a reel? Like different end games, 100%.
Right. And I guess it honestly depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to become TikTok famous with your cows and you can make a living that way, do it that way. But if it's to actually have people come to your farm and, like you said, convert, then, it doesn't matter if somebody in Timbuktu saw your reel, right? I'm trying to think geographically where Timbuktu is compared to you. I was like, is that closer than I think it is? Victoria, if somebody is listening who has thought of getting into agritourism or doing something, I guess, different on their farm, what advice do you have for them?
I would say the biggest piece of advice is to make sure you really have set boundaries and flesh out what it is exactly going to look like for your farm and for your operation. When you open for agritourism, there is no copy paste. This farm is doing this, we're going to do it too. Like, the biggest thing is that it has to work for your lifestyle and you and your family before anything else, because it's still going to be planting season and harvest season, and throwing in this whole added layer of agritourism will drive your family crazy if you don't have some kind of boundary as far as like what this is going to look like. So the best thing that we did was just do things by appointment. So I can literally say this Saturday, I want people here from 9 to 12, and that's it. So that works for me. That works for my family. That lets me still have time for the farm itself and also checks the box of welcoming people. So really thinking through and defining what you want that to look like, having those systems, having that boundary, having that idea of what it looks like today, what it looks like in busy season. It's probably the best thing you can do starting out.
Yeah, for sure. What's next for you? What is next on your farm and your operation? What are those big goals and dreams?
Absolutely. So we are very quickly getting back to busy season. So for me, I'm kind of taking 2025 as like, I'm calling it my trial and error year. So we, of course, will continue with our private reservations to meet the cows. We're also having a goal of hosting one event on the farm every month, and that looks a little bit different each month. So for March, we're hosting a breeder's workshop of like how to own Highland cows. April, we're doing like a DIY wood planter workshop, so more of like a cows and crafts type of thing. So figuring out what that looks like the rest of the year, what we want to offer, how it's going to fit in with everything else we're already doing. So private reservations, the monthly events. I also do coaching calls for other farmers who want to chat through this type of thing as well, because it's so unique and different to every operation. So outside of that, just surviving all the new things that this year is going to throw my way is my only goal.
Absolutely. And I love the trial and error era because, there's going to be ups and downs in any business, whether it's, brand new or it's been running like clockwork for 20 years. We live in a world that it's changing every day, and being able to get through those errors and learn from them of what's going to be next. I think that's growth. And it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today, and I've gotten so much from our conversation. My last question for you is, what is the most rewarding part about being a rural woman for you?
The most rewarding part for me is being able to give others the access to experience agriculture. It's something that I will not take for granted. Losing that season of life for a little while, it is really my mission to, whatever I do in my business next, make sure that giving access to agriculture, whether it's to other farmers or to our local community, stays the focus. So that is huge. When people are able to come out to the farm and meet cows and take selfies with them, like, it sounds so simple and so silly, but it is truly an impact that they wouldn't be able to see or experience in another way. So access to agriculture is a major part of it all.
I love that. That's so good. Victoria, for those who would like to connect with you online, where can they find you?
We are on Facebook and Instagram at Black Rock Farm. Very straightforward.
Perfect. And I will link those in the show notes, as well as your website, and people can connect with you and hopefully come see your cute cows.
Absolutely. Right. If you listen, shoot me a message. I would love to know. So definitely say hi.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your story with me. I truly appreciate it.
I appreciate your time and the voice you're giving to women in ag.
Thanks for listening to the Rural Woman Podcast. The Rural Woman Podcast is more than just a podcast. We are a community. A huge thank you to the Rural Woman Podcast team, audio editor Max Hofer, and a special thanks to our Patreon executive producers, Sarah Riedner from Happiness by the Acre. To learn how you can become a Patreon executive producer or other ways to financially support the show, head on over to wildrosefarmer.com to learn more. Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you listen to the podcast to get the latest episodes directly on your playlist. And if you are loving the show, please be sure to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other platform that accepts ratings and reviews. You can connect with us on social media at The Rural Woman Podcast and with me at Wild Rose Farmer. One of the best ways you can support the show is by sharing it. Send this episode to a friend or share on your social media. Let's strengthen and amplify the voices of women in agriculture together. Until next time, my friend, keep sharing your story. Did you know that you can get this same great episode of the Rural Woman podcast ad-free? I get it. Listening to ads during a podcast isn't always my favorite either. But in order to keep the lights and coffee pot on here at the Rural Woman Podcast Studios, they are necessary. I am so grateful to each and every one of my sponsors, but if you yourself would like to skip the ads while supporting the show, consider joining me over on Patreon. Patrons of the Rural Woman podcast get ad-free episodes starting at Tier 5 on their podcast player of choice each week, plus some other great benefits. Find out more by heading to the link in today's show notes to learn how you can become a patron through Patreon.